Welcome back. You watch your morning live. Now, if you're trying to figure out ways of how to own your brand or to better and grow it, then this next interview is just for you. Sibusiso Mfeka is an author of the book titled The Making of a Brand. In this, really enlightens us on what is a brand, what makes a brand, and how you can push your brand to the next level. Sibusiso, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's start with the definition of what is a brand, because there's a lot of people on social media these days calling themselves or defining themselves as a brand, but I'm not sure that they tick the box of what the definition of a brand is.
Yeah. In fact, I have a very different definition of what a brand is. I move away from an academic way of defining what a brand is, because first of all, when I wrote the book, I wrote it for somebody who's never been to business school. So I had to redefine what I think a brand is. For me, a brand is basically what you do on a daily basis and how you're doing it. It speaks of consistency. It speaks of the way you're doing things. It speaks of your mindset and all that. So when you're talking about what a brand is basically when you say, how do you edge yourself into somebody's mind on a daily basis?
Okay.
You know, so for me, that's what a brand is.
So, okay, let me understand and let's get it clear. So, if your definition of a brand is what you do on a day-to-day basis, and the question is how you edge yourself into someone else's mind. Who qualifies to be a brand? Can a taxi driver be a brand? Can a director of a show's behind the scene be a brand? Or are brands only visible in the public space?
Yeah. Anybody can be a brand depending on how you position yourself. Okay. For example, you use the taxi driver. If a taxi driver can be a brand, yes, a taxi driver can be a brand depending on how they influence those that they take to work or bring home on a daily basis. If a taxi driver is somebody who swears every morning to everybody, that's how they will be known. But if a taxi driver is somebody who will greet people in the morning and ask them how they are doing, they will be known as a taxi driver who cares. That is their brand. So anybody can be a brand, whether you are behind the scenes, whether you are on the scenes, anybody can be a brand.
But now, obviously, there's scale in this because, you know, a Rihanna, a Michael Jackson has a very different brand to a Paul Manare, Sam Marshall, Lebo Tinani, and then the ordinary person who's not even on TV.
Yes, yes. Of course, it depends on the level and the scale where you are. It depends on the exposure. It depends on how you have attached your brand to other brands. You know, for example, you've spoken about Rihanna, people like your Beyonce. It depends on the platforms where they are. You know, it depends on who is behind them in as far as growing those brands are concerned. There are people whose brands are not...
I want to interject there quickly. Is that the difference between brand and branding?
Yeah, there is a difference. I normally say a brand is the end product, but branding is the process. Because branding happens every day. You know, I would normally say that you need to be, if you are building a brand, you need to be in people's faces every day. Because I think it was Tebe Ikalafeng who once said, in 10 years' time, that was 10 years ago when he said it. He said, in 10 years' time, people are going to be famous only for 11 minutes. You know, and it is true. Why? It is because you need to be consistently be in people's minds and in people's eyes. I think there's a saying that says, out of sight, out of mind, something like that. You know, so it's very much important that you are consistently in the minds and in the hearts of people and in the lips of people.
And I'm sure Tebe Galefeng got that from Andy Warhol, who talked about your 15 minutes of fame.
15 minutes of fame, yeah.
Talk to me about this idea that everybody can be a brand. And I'm also then thinking about the value of that brand or the intrinsic value of that brand, because Beyonce's intrinsic value as a brand is very different to an ordinary person on the street. And would those two people then be able to have a conversation?
It all depends. I don't think the two people can have a conversation because it depends on the levels of where they are in life. There are people that you can converse with at their level. For example, we used the taxi driver before. A taxi driver cannot have the same conversation as Beyonce would have, because Beyonce has got a global view of things and a global understanding of things. And a taxi driver probably has a phosphorus to Noord taxi rank view, you know. But at the end of the day, both of them are brands because of how they view themselves and because of how people view them. But the brand value would
I actually love
different.
what you're saying, because if the taxi driver is perceived as being swearing and negative, it affects how people interact with him. A very interesting thing my director is mentioning in my ear is the value of money attached to branding and building a brand. Can you build a brand without money?
You can build a brand without money depending on what you are intending to do with the brand that you are building. For example, if you are involved in social causes where you are not doing it to make money, you are building a brand as somebody who's building lives, somebody who's encouraging people, somebody who's making sure that the next person's life changes. But it does not necessarily impact on your life financially. But if you are building a brand that is going to be making you wealthy and making other people probably wealthy around you, then there has to be money attached to it.
Very quickly, who's this book aimed at? Everybody?
Nope, the book is not aimed at everybody. The book is aimed at emerging entrepreneurs, especially those that have never been to business school to learn about the concept of branding. Because I myself, I have never studied marketing. I wrote the book because I'm a researcher. I'm somebody who's always looking out for information and somebody who's always interacting with people and understanding how they're branding themselves. Hence, I put the book together. So I wrote it for people like me.
Yeah. Final question quickly. Where's the next front in the branding war? Social media is in many ways equal the playing field. You've got people with close to 2 million followers. Nobody knows who they are. 10, 20, 30 million. Where do you see the war in the brand war?
Yeah, no, that for me would be very, very much difficult to deal with. But if I were to say, where do I see branding going in the future? I see people moving more into the idea space, which I call the idea economy. Hence, we're talking these days about the fourth industrial revolution, where everything is becoming automated, everything is becoming digital and all that. So that is where I see branding going, where people are going to be doing things that have never been tested and tried before. People are becoming disruptive. People are moving away from the conventional way of doing things into the controversial way of doing things.
Interesting conversation. Sibusiso Mfeka, he's a pastor, motivational speaker, and the author of The Making of a Brand. All you've got to do is Google the details to find out where you can get your copy. Lebo standing by with Grandmaster DJ Ready D.
All right, it stars 5 of South Africa's funniest comics: Stuart Taylor, Joey Rastine, Barry Hilton, Kagiso Lidija, and Loiso Kola, and is backed by